Hey, it's Ethan Skolnick for the latest episode of The Fourth Floor, brought to you, as you can see, by Biscayne Bay Brewing. Make sure you check out, in addition to the Tropical Bay IPA, the Marlins Lager. Also, I was never put this in front of the screen correctly. Which one do I have here? The Miami Pale Ale, whatever it is, it's going in my belly very quickly. Also, try the new Sideline Pass. You got to check that one out. That is a new beer, tied to football, of course, that you guys can check out. All right, let's get to it. I'm going to do this correctly the first time. You ready? I've written it down phonetically. Alana Tauhauer joining me. Did I get it right?
You're close enough.
That's when people tell me that, I accept it. Brady Hawk underneath. Obviously, Brady was just on the calls with Steve Nash. We've got three of us here tonight. I'm Ethan Skolnick. And obviously, we're going to do a post-game show tonight as well. Royal Shepherd will show up on that one, we think. To sort of monitor that way. Appreciate everybody who was on the post-game stream last night. I know that was not an easy one. Let's get right to it. The Brooklyn Nets tonight are an 8-point favorite against the Miami Heat. The Heat still don't have, even with them on this trip, so don't expect them Monday either, Hero, Butler, Bradley, Leonard. So 4 guys still out. The Nets have everybody. They decided to save everybody for tonight, including Kevin Durant. I'll get to Alana here in a second. Brady, what did you take from the Steve Nash calls?
I mean, he's just trying to make adjustments right now as a head coach. It's basically what he noted, but also with a team now that has a big three. So I think basically what they're trying to do is, obviously trying to get a defensive, standpoint in there. But ultimately, he's just trying to get the talent, to get rolling first. And that's why when I first mentioned, they're coming off of 2 losses against Cleveland. It's like they're going to come in with some fire. But it's not like a Miami team that plays straightly off grit. It's a team that plays off talent, especially right now because they're new. So I don't think that's exactly the case. It's just going to come down to, do these guys come in with the firepower that's needed? But even on nights when they do, as you see, Cleveland just clearly outscored them. But obviously without the guys that Miami has right now, it's just hard to do that. But, we'll see what happens.
Well, the thing about the Nets is, it's one thing to say they're not competing defensively enough. I don't think they have the personnel to compete defensively. Jared Allen's not there anymore. DeAndre Jordan's a shell of himself. They don't have a bunch of bigs. I think most teams, including the Heat, would be able to take advantage of this if they had everybody, Alana, but they don't have everybody. What, in your view, needs to be different than what we saw last night against Toronto?
I guess it's more like what can be different, right, at this point, because a lot needs to be different. I think that, and I know people keep harping on Bam, and I'm not trying to do that, but he did look a little bit hesitant on a lot of his shots. It was almost like a lot of the times he was playing to get the call and not just to go up strong and see what happens. So I definitely think a lot of that weight is on him. Duncan didn't have as good a shooting night as he usually does either. He still performed, and given our offensive manpower right now, it's understandable that, not everyone's going to be up to par every night. But I think that if he, starts to get hotter, I think that will help as well. The only thing I'll say is we have a tendency, and this isn't just this year, but I think we kind of play down to competition. So that's the only kind of silver lining there, where I think obviously coming off a loss as bad as we did as well, but just, the facing much, much tougher competition, I feel like that'll actually help us in a weird way.
One of the stats that came out of the last game is the Heat were minus 31 without Dragic on the floor. And I don't even think he was that good when he played. Mm-hmm. But I don't know exactly how that changes. They don't have another ball handler. Nunn is playing at a pretty high level for him. I tweeted out some stats, actually, on a per 36-minute basis. I know we're talking about a tiny, tiny sample size, and he's obviously getting some opportunities with others not out there. Per 36 minutes, his numbers are better than last season, actually, across the board. True shooting percentage, points per 36 minutes, assists, and points he's the same, but assists and rebounds he's a little above. But he's not a ball handler, Brady. He's not going to set other guys up. How do they survive the non-Dragic minutes? Because they really don't want to be playing Goran 35.
Right, and he mentioned that, just a little bit ago. He said basically that this is something that they have to go to right now because they need him, but they don't want to do this for too many months. But obviously the circumstances are just, it's hard to deal with it. But he mentioned, Gabe Vincent is a guy that the reason they inserted him, obviously he's not shooting the ball well, but he said, they needed him as a ball handler. As you mentioned, Nunn scores the ball well, and he actually played very good defensively, but he's not the ball handler that's necessary right now. But I also do want to mention he's become much better playmaker. You can talk about the assist numbers, but I think he's just much more when he's confident offensively, he becomes a much more confident playmaker, and you see that with the lob pass, you see that with running pick and rolls, everything. I think that's something to mention. But ultimately, the Goran situation, he's probably gonna have to play a good amount tonight. I think they were trying to stagger him in Bam's minutes because you cannot survive non-Goran and non-Bam minutes like yesterday. And Spo tried to do that. And at one point in the game, I think it was 61 all, and he took him out. And Bam mentioned that he wants to talk to Spo about rotational things because he'd like to stay in the game at those points. But I think that's gonna be a big thing. Once again, staggering those minutes because those minutes without those two are gonna be tough.
Well, and Goran was getting into foul trouble too, which I think is a big problem that obviously fouls are going to happen here and there, but we've been making some really sloppy ones really early on. And then we are basically playing from behind, and that's really hard to not only catch up to, but rotationally, it messes everything up moving forward too.
Well, and one of the problems with that is when you're not guarding at the point of attack, then you end up with a lot of cheap fouls inside because guys are getting into the paint. There's a rotation. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the rotation is late. Then the official's going to call that. Alana, I'm going to give you the three names on the other side. Of these three, they all pose significant problems to the Heat in different ways with what the Heat has out there. There's no Jimmy to defend right now. Obviously there's no Avery Bradley in the backcourt who would certainly help tonight. Durant, Kyrie, and Harden, who scares you the most tonight?
I mean, I have to go with KD. I think he's the most well-rounded player. I also think because he's coming off a little bit of rest, he's a little bit more refreshed. I also think in terms of off-court things, he has it a little bit more together. I think Kyrie and Harden, their egos can get in the way sometimes. I know Kyrie already posted a bunch of stuff on social media kind of talking about how they're here to stay and gassing the team up a little bit. So I think, both mentally and physically, KD's the biggest problem here.
All right, Brady, give me a path to victory tonight. Now, we don't have Greg here tonight, and if Greg was here, Greg would say the Heat win anyway. But just give me you usually have a path. What was it? Duncan just going off with 6 threes? Is that essentially the best way here?
Yeah, I don't think it's about Duncan Robinson makes. I think it's about Duncan Robinson attempts. That's what I've been saying over this long stretch. I think at certain times. Yesterday was hard to judge because they're just absolutely double teaming him and Bam, just leaving the corner open every single possession with Iguodala. But tonight, I think it's just going to be about getting attempts up. It's not about efficiency right now. It's about just getting attempts. So I think that's the biggest thing. And I do think we see, I don't know if we see Gabe Vincent tonight starting. I think with those three, you see a defensive guy step in. Possibly, they go differently and go with KZ or maybe Mo Harkless or one of those. And then that makes sense that, Kyrie would probably be the guy to go off for them tonight because that means Goran's guarding him. But I do think, I think Bam would probably get the matchup with KD tonight. So I do think that's going to be an interesting matchup to see. And then obviously Duncan will guard Joe Harris.
I wasn't laughing at you, Brady. I'm laughing at our guy, Ben, who posted the best chances that the three of them forget that there's a game tonight. With Harden and Kyrie, there is a chance of that. So KD will be there. Obviously you said it last night, but there is a chance, depending on what kind of establishment is near the arena, that Harden forgets, and then Kyrie just may forget, or he may take his sage somewhere else. Do the Heat have to, Alana, to win tonight? Do the Heat have to get 125?
Yeah, or a miracle if that's the other option here. Again, I don't think I'm going to stay optimistic. I don't actually feel like it's going to be a blowout just because, again, we're coming off a bad loss. We obviously have a lot to prove. And again, we do play down, but it's going to take some intervention to win this game, I think.
Well, and let's get to that because you're 6-8 right now, right? If you lose these two against the Nets, we're not expecting to see Jimmy, Hero, or Butler, or Bradley in the next game. You're staring down the barrel at 6-10 with the Clippers and the Nuggets next. Not in that order. I know we keep saying it's early, right? And that they've undergone a lot of adversity and that the East hasn't run away from them. Milwaukee doesn't have a great record. Boston and Philly kind of come back to the pack a little bit. Obviously they played each other last night, but 6-12, man. They made the finals last year. Like at one point, does this start to seep in? I'll start with Alana on this. What? And the fans, I feel like, I don't know, they're a little disengaged right now. The season's weird. You don't know who's playing from night to night. They feel like the Heat have gotten screwed here by the whole COVID thing. 6-12 wouldn't be great.
Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest, I don't think we'd be in the situation if we had a full roster or if even one guy was out on a nightly basis. But to lose not only numbers, but the people we're losing. I mean, without Butler and Butler and Tyler alone, that's a big hit. I do also think that the season's weird all over the board for everyone. And I was a little bit surprised that, I feel like other teams are getting off a little easier with COVID protocols. It seemed like those first two games after things started getting crazy in the league, I thought we were going to get, a postponement, but we didn't. I don't know if that's the league. I don't know if that's the team saying, let's carry on. I mean, is it time to panic? I don't know, but it's definitely not a good look so far. And it's going to take a lot of work, once people are healthy to kind of build back up.
And that's an interesting comment. Adam is actually producing tonight. Barai is looking over my shoulder. He says, and then he just posted his own comment. I'm getting closer to not wanting to trade for anyone at all. That's an interesting thought. I've been saying that, like, if it doesn't look like you can seriously compete this season, then why make a move for just this year? Like, does it make sense to go after a Kyle Lowry for 1 year, on the last year of his contract, or even a Oladipo, who you're not sort of guaranteed to re-sign, or a PJ Tucker, when you don't feel that you're competitive with some of these other teams in the East? I don't feel like the Heat feel that way yet. Again, they feel like they were screwed. I can tell you, they also feel like maybe playing it straight was the wrong thing to do. They should have maybe kept Tyler out of one of those games, like we've seen some other teams do. But Brady, like, at what point do you say, okay, you know what, just ride it out with what you have, because this isn't going to be like last year anyway?
Well, I remember saying a few weeks ago with the situation when everybody was just making small trade, rumors for a guy like Kendrick Nunn. And I was like, even when he wasn't playing at his best, you could use a guy like Kendrick Nunn down the line that has the capability to score. And obviously we're seeing it now. But giving away even a guy like that wasn't performing at his highest, you need him right now, because I don't even think these trades that we're discussing is going to fix anything at this stage. We're talking about, the goal is to look at it long term, but short term, I don't think that fixes anything. So I think the best thing to do right now, as you mentioned, with the circumstances that are going on, is to ride it out. And then, if these things continue when you have guys like Tyler and Jimmy in the lineup, then I think that's when you make your decisions.
I know Greg wants to talk about this more, so I'm going to hold most of this for him. But as a bonus for those of you who tuned into a pregame show on a Saturday night after that performance against the Raptors, I will tell you that the Heat are one of the teams that has inquired about Bjelica. And I can't pronounce his name correctly, but they are one of the teams that has. And by the way, the exception that they have, he could fit right into it. So there is a possibility here. What do we got? Adam, you popping on?
Bielitsa.
Whatever. Go back where you were. That's it. That's
Editor's note.
That's it. All right, let's get. We always do this at the end here. Let's get to the picks. I feel like this is going to be a clean sweep. Nets.
Yeah.
All right. Somewhere Greg is shouting, but no, I think he's happy he's not on here because he doesn't have to change. He doesn't have to change his perfect record on this stuff. We'll see what happens. Maybe we get 10 Duncan Robinson threes tonight. Again, the big victory tonight. Alana Tauer. I got it right?
Tauer. You're close. You're getting there.
God. All right. Brady Hawk. That one's easy. Brady Hawk. Ethan J. Skolnick. Alana will be on with us a little bit more. Obviously, follow Brady's work on our website. Thanks for joining us. Post game, I'm just going to let Royal roll. So that's his deal at that point. Have a good night. We hope.